went to principal's meeting yesterday, and that's why we moved it to Thursday faculty meeting, because it just seemed like a lot for me to try to cram in. I can't really get ready for faculty meeting after being at principal's meeting, so Thursday would seem to be a better day. That being said, I received a lot of information yesterday that I wanted to share with y'all. Typically, we don't go over just little managerial things, but this was worth spending a little bit of time with. So you'll turn the thing. Okay, so we just want to call these Heritage Tattoos. Supervise your students. This was something they talked about yesterday. We do a fairly good job about making sure we supervise kids, but I know there's always those times we step out of the classroom for a little bit and run down to the bathroom or run over to somebody's room. And they probably spent about 15 minutes yesterday. Mr. Davis talking about, right now there's like 2 lawsuits with Robertson County, and we didn't want a third one to go on, and this was a big hot topic. So please make sure that you're supervising your kids. If you have an emergency, you need to hit the emergency button and call for somebody to come in, and we'll try to get down there and watch them for a couple of minutes. But I'm talking about not even running across the hallway. Like, you've got to be, something can happen in a matter of seconds. And we do not want to be sitting there going, but I just stepped across the hallway. And it's just a very uncomfortable situation, and we don't want any kind of litigation or anything like that. So it's for our own personal best interest just to make sure that we are in the classroom at all times. If you're doing stuff after school with kids, you need to make sure that you're supervising them as well. If they need to stay with you. Like, a lot of times we'll dismiss if we're coaching or we have club meetings and we're dismissing kids and we really don't know where they're going. And they're maybe wandering around the building. So they need to stay with you until they are in the car or they get in their car and leave. Stay in, where you can see them visibly. We've saved over $200,000 this summer with our shutdown. That unplugging and turning off, they're going to do that again, of course, over Christmas break. They're going to even go into the lounges this time. They want us to unplug our refrigerator, so if you guys have things in there, please make sure that somebody cleans that out so we can unplug and save some more money. She said we did a much better job over Thanksgiving break than we did over fall break, which I agree with that. I think we did. But they're counting computers. Like, over fall break, there was 170 computers left on, and over Thanksgiving break there was only 78 computers. So she's actually coming in and looking and paying very close attention and looking at the electric bill. So we saved over $200,000. Common assessments, please continue to send that to me and your results. And then I have to forward those to Dr. Causey. He made it very clear yesterday that he wasn't getting a whole lot of those, and that was my fault. I haven't been forwarding them to them. So I thought, what are you doing with all that? But anyway, he wants them, so he's going to get them. And then, okay, you're going to have a common assessment on IEPs. We got a big old packet on IEPs, making sure those are fully implemented and they're followed, and your modifications. And if you don't know what those are, we need to make sure that we are clear on what are the modifications, what are the accommodations, and then please don't say these things. I know that we've been told this before, but I just want to hit it one more time. I didn't know. Just don't say I didn't know anything in that meeting. Like, just don't say anything. It's like, okay. You don't want to throw anybody under the bus. We're a team when we're sitting in there, so everyone say I didn't know. We don't have that class, or I can't do that. You may not be able to, but we can word it in a better way. So we have to be very wise in choosing our words. Your child needs. Anytime we're going to say your child needs something, we have to provide it. If your child needs counseling, we have to provide that. Your child needs an iPad, we provide that. You may think that, and that's something we might want to do before we go in and say, hey, I've got a great idea. I think this would work really well for the kid. And maybe we will provide that, but we don't want to sign off on that, and we don't want to say that during an IEP meeting. Then we become financially responsible for that.
So with a child that's going through grief, and I feel like they need some extra counseling, even though they're developing that you can't even say.
Not during an IEP meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That's just during IEP.
Just during an IEP meeting. Anybody that's on an IEP. All right. Next. Now, we've done a pretty good job having an attendance issue with our professional staff, and we're coming up short on subs. And so we just want to kind of make everybody kind of aware, because that was one of the issues. Like, I understand when you're out all the way across the building that you may not know there's 4 or 5 people already out over here. You may not care. I care. You may not care. But, I mean, you know, you don't know that we have 10 people out for the day. We've done a pretty good job about having subs in the building, but you all know that you're the most important piece of the puzzle. So when you're not here, basically there's no kids, there's nothing going on in your class. It's just kind of busy work. And as much as you want to plan and think that something great's going on and that's a great lesson, if you're not in that classroom, it makes all the difference in the world. So just, I pulled out a few little stats, and like I said, they pulled them out yesterday and we were looking pretty good, but so in October, we had 18 instructional days, and we had 43 absences. So 43 days, we had somebody absent, or a couple of days were multiple days, out of the 18 instructional days. And then in November, we had 15 instructional days, and we had 51 days absent. So I'm not saying, I understand kids get sick. That's a great thing about this job. If your kid's sick, you kind of have a little bit of leeway to be able to take off. It's kind of family-oriented. And I know Logston, he counted for a lot of those days, and so, because he had knee surgery, what anything you can do about that, and that's fine. And we get sick. But just be mindful of that, and because central office is also looking at it, and I don't, you know, I need you all to be here, and I know you want to be here. It's much, as we always talk about, it's a lot harder to not be here than it is to be here. No, that's no professional days. No. And some of those are support staff as well. But, you know, we don't have that many support staff, so. All right. Now we're going to recap, because we have two that are going to go over our EDI book, and it's on activating prior knowledge. So we just want to activate some prior knowledge. We had went over checking for understanding in the past and learning objectives. And so think back, way back, when we did checking for understanding. And way back, pull it. And let's see, when should you reteach? After how many?
Just 3.
2. Very good. So say that out loud.
After 2 people get it wrong.
Okay. And then how many students should you call on to check for understanding? 3. 3, you're right. Very good. We got some retention going on. All right, and then learning objectives. What should be included, one thing that should be included in a learning objective?
You can measure.
What is it? There's a
Something
couple
you
of
can measure.
measure.
Verb.
A verb. That's what I remembered the verb part. And should the learning objective match your independent practice? That's a yes or no? Yes, it should. Yes, it should. Very good. All right, so now we're going to do activating prior knowledge. And Ms. House wanted to remind you guys that STAR testing will be going on tomorrow during RTI, and so the upstairs and downstairs lab will be occupied. Y'all have any questions about anything? All right.
We're going to paint it. It may end up being in logo. Okay, so if you think that you have an interesting, creative answer for what this might be, thank you. What do you think?
Okay, I think it's a sea serpent with a very long snout, sort of like Nessie.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Very creative. Anyone else? A reindeer taking a nap. Very, very, very Christmas. I'm sorry? A page. A pelican. And what indicates a pelican? His beak. Thigh.
Oh, a seahorse. It's
The crooked neck. Yes. I saw her seahorse.
Yeah, seahorse. I see that. Dragon. Yeah.
This is one of the activities, one of the lessons that I actually do with my R2 and 3 class. And what I have them do is we talk a little bit about all these different pieces of driftwood. This is actually a piece of driftwood for some of those analytical thinkers that are in the room that are going, it's wood. That's what you just said. It's wood, yes. It's wood. That's what it is. Okay, so we use this concept and we talk about all of the things that it could be. And you guys even named things that I hadn't even thought of. I see a bird, maybe an egret or a pelican concept, long beak. That's what I see. But I was very interested to hear some of the other things that you guys also see. All of those things come from previous experiences. That's what that comes from. You couldn't come up with that concept unless you had a visual idea of what a pelican looked like, or what a bird with a long beak looked like, or as you said, you see a seahorse. All of those things come from previous experiences. It's a very simple concept, but it's something that's very important for the kids to understand so that they can attach themselves to whatever project we're doing. So that's important. Activating prior knowledge. Activating prior knowledge elicits students' existing knowledge to provide a connection between something students already know and the new content that they're going to learn.
When students' prior knowledge is explicitly activated, it's easier for them to learn a new content. That's because the brain wants to integrate new information with what it already knows.
And what we have found out from activating prior knowledge is if you give them something interesting, their brains are going to immediately turn on. They're going to start thinking about it. And they're going to connect what you're telling them that's new to the things that they've had, the things that they've experienced in the past. How do you select the knowledge to activate, Ms. Biggs?
To determine the knowledge to activate, look carefully at the learning objective. The learning objective already contains the knowledge to activate. You activate students' prior knowledge relating to either the learning objective concept or the learning objective skill.
So we've already been instructed on learning objectives. We all write them. We all understand them. So to find the prior knowledge or to activate it, your key is going to look at your concept and your skill within the learning objective. Suppose the objective is compare and contrast characters from two stories. You can activate students' prior knowledge of characters, that's the objective's concept, or the students' prior knowledge of comparing and contrasting. So you have two options there, and you can focus on either of those. You've got the character within the story, and that's the concept, or you can talk about and try to get them to connect to the comparing and contrasting, which is the skill. Easy. Activating prior knowledge can be done in two ways. The universal experience, which is what we just experienced. When you activate prior knowledge using universal experience, you activate something from the student's prior life experience that's related to new learning. And that's what you guys did with this activity. All we did was just talk about a piece of wood. And we discussed the creative aspects of it and what it could be if you were to create it or make it into something. But also activating prior knowledge can happen by sub-skill review. It's often used to fill in gaps of student knowledge. Sub-skill review is the illicit review of something previously taught that is directly pertinent to the new lesson. So it's just basically a review. So you have both of those concepts. Now, all of us activate prior knowledge. That's those hooks, that's those interest points that we do at the beginning of class to get them interested in what we're wanting to teach. These are some of the ways that you can do that, or you already do that. You listen to what the students are telling you, ask them to clarify if it sounds like book knowledge. You ask questions. You send the students on the scavenger hunt to assess prior knowledge. I see those all over the school all the time, the little Post-it notes and the scavenger hunts. Next page. Some other things that you might do is debate. You conduct a debate. You have them take a pre-quiz. That's really simple. So there's lots of ways that we activate our prior knowledge for kids. One of the big ways that I activate prior knowledge, especially with vocabulary, and that's a focus that we have right now, is have them draw. Draw what you know. Ask the students questions about their drawings. So So we have them draw their vocabulary. A lot of us do that. I do that a lot. I also ask them to create. Sometimes, well, oftentimes, when they create whatever they're doing, they have to also explain it. So they have to have that experience ahead of time to know how to do that and what it is they're doing. And then demonstrate how you would train someone in prior knowledge today. Here's what I would like for you to do now. Ms. Biggs is passing out a piece of paper. I would like for you to make a connection. What I want you to do is just look at the piece of paper and then connect the dots. Connect each dot, dot to dot. Let me give specific instruction. One dot to the other dot. When you activate prior knowledge, you make a connection with the kids. You want to make sure that they understand what it is you're trying to explain to them, so you make that connection. Ms. Dawson, what is your connection? Do you know? What are your dots? Well done. Are you a superstar? What you're seeing, if you can, some of you may not be seeing it, but if you connected individual dots, most often you are seeing what, Ms. Crafton? She's seeing a star, because you guys are all superstars. The reason why I gave you a dot to dot, a really simple one, is because I don't want to make anything too complicated.
What are you trying to say?
I don't want to make anything too complicated. Actually, this activity is used in my class, but they do random dots, and then they just connect them, and then they have to look for things within them, which is absolutely connected to prior knowledge. They find fish and snakes and all kinds of interesting things within them. Clearly, the reason why I gave this to you is because I wanted you all to see before you ever even connected the dots. Did a lot of you see the star? Yeah. It was really easy, especially when I wrote top. The top of the page. Some of that is you already knew that it was a star before you ever even did the activities. And that's prior knowledge. It's really simple, it's basic, but I wanted you to see that. Ladies, this is for you. Let me see if I can read this right on the diagram a little better. It says, hey girl, I like the way you activate prior knowledge and provide strategies for differentiation for all types of learners. You're amazing. I just wanted you to know that he really appreciates you. Sorry, guys. Anyway, next screen. Just big.
This I added, and I asked her if we could add this to it. Being the vision teacher for Robertson County, I wanted you to see this as you're thinking of preparing your PowerPoint. This is a little bit extra information. Visually impaired students, if you have one in your class at any point in time, if you take your cell phone and go outside and try to see it in the sunlight, that's what it's like for them to see PowerPoints, Elmo, even cell phones, screens of any kind. So, and different depending on their vision, it depends on how well they see it or how well they don't see it, or, so forth. So this PowerPoint used Arial 12 font. Now, of course, it projects bigger. We use the Arial type print, 12 font in black letters for ease of reading. Also, a light background, not white, to reduce the glare. Text was stable and presented in a simple format for the eyes to focus on the important information to be learned. The chart was the only one that was a little confusing, but the rest of the information, if you notice, was very simple, very plain lettering. The Arial is the most basic plain lettering you can use of any font. And we didn't have things spinning in or rolling in, and all that really helps a child that's visually impaired. So if you ever have one in your class, you can kind of remember that when you're doing your PowerPoints. And also, to help them, if you give them a hard copy on their desk, really helps them.
Thank you.
reading it, because we had been, you know, let's facilitate, we're Common Core, we're gonna do an amazing strategy that I saw in the classroom the other day, the Socratic seminar, where it kind of removes the teacher out of the class, or out of the instruction piece, and kind of lets the kids go do their thing. And then we open up the book and it says direct instruction, right? So it's teacher-centered. And so we talked about today, like, I feel like we've got this big buffet of all these strategies. Huge buffet. I mean, every day we're getting more and more strategies added to. We got Quizlet and Khan Academy we can use, and we got Socratic Seminar, we got all these techniques. We're drawing things, we're listening to things, we're watching the video. And so as a professional, it becomes a little bit overwhelming. I can see it. So we have to decide on the buffet what is the best piece of everything for that class based on those students and that skill. So this may not be the best thing to use every single time, but I can think of a really good time when I do, we do, you do needs to be implemented in the classroom. And not the Socratic seminar, not the project-based learning. When would this be a great time to do that?
Math.
A new skill. When?
Math.
Math.
All
Yes.
math.
Because it's lots of practice in math. Lots of practice. And I don't know how much Socratic seminar you're going to be doing on an algebraic equation. Okay? So yes, this would be ideal for a new learning concept. Then you could take those other strategies and say, hey, they've got this down and we want to go a little deeper. We want to explore a little more. We want them to debate. We've got a high level of kids, and then we want some more other things to come out of this class. And so we're going to use this. So we've got this big buffet, and we're going to go based on my first block, how many kids I have, what the room situation looks like, what kind of tables I have, something cool I've learned, what their interest level is. I'm going to pick a little bit of this, and I'm going to pick a little bit of this, and I'm going to pick a whole lot of this, because I think this is going to be a great thing. And stick with it. So there's a time and a place for this, but it's probably not every single class, or it may be every single class. There's great things in this. Activating prior knowledge is so important. Telling kids what we expect for them to learn, that's the foundation. Checking for understanding, we can't move on until we know if they know it or not. And all the other concepts that will be coming out of this. So, your task is not to become overwhelmed, but to figure out what is it my kids need. Where am I trying to go and how do I need to get there? By using all the information that you have. Now, how does that relate to the team rubrics? Because ideally, somebody comes in and you're doing this, is it going to fit? Yeah. It's going to fit. It's going to fit. It may not fit a 5 in every little indicator. It may not fit a 5, but it's gonna be high in a lot of those indicators. If you put this down and you go Common Core and you're asking questions and you're allowing kids to debate, is it going to fit in the team rubrics? Absolutely. There might be not a 5 level in some of those indicators, but we want to be at least a 3 in every one of those no matter what we pick. And either one of those are going to fit perfectly in there if you plan accordingly. If you plan based on students, the objective, you're asking questions and students are engaged, however it may look. Independent practice is engagement. They're practicing. They got to practice. It's going to fit in there. So it's up to you. Autonomy. I was talking to Ms. Dickerson about that. And all of our vocabulary. So I'm not an administrator that comes in and says, everybody's going to do this, this, and this. I don't like the cookie cutter approach. I wouldn't want people to do that to me, and I'm not going to do it to you guys. But if the vocabulary is something that we're going to focus on, everybody has to have their little, how am I going to teach this piece in there? And that's the same thing. Go in your classroom, do your thing. You guys are great teachers, and you know what's best. Do you have any questions? Just want to kind of pull it all back together again. So we're going to do the next chapter at the next faculty meeting, and then we're going to go ahead and finish it up, wrap it up on that January 4th date. it's a fourth day. Way too, fifth is too far for me. But whatever that meeting day is, we gotta get back. It'll be half classroom and half this, and we'll wrap this up and be done with this. Yes, sir.
One thing that really helps me for activating prior knowledge is it's just a metaphor, really. It's like, think of students learning as almost like archaeology. They learn something in your class, then they go to the next class, they learn something else, another layer gets piled on top, and then they go home, they learn 3 more things at home from whatever they're doing. They talk to their friends, they learn a new thing. And by the time they get back to your class, that prior learning is covered by about 8 or 10 levels of knowledge, and that's just from one day. If you think about it at the beginning of the year, it's hundreds of levels of knowledge that they have to dig through. And I find that if you think of it in that way, you don't get nearly as discouraged as, I know they know this. How many times have you said that as a teacher? I know they learned this last year, right? I know they learned this last week. You know, and you can't take it that as personally if you realize that there's all this physical stuff on top of that learning.
Very good. Good job. All right, anything else?